Welcome to Divine Power with Dr. Soul. It is Wednesday, and that means it's time for Worldly Wednesday, where we talk about worldly things from a higher, more spiritual perspective. We talk about celebrities, world events, anything going on in the world, or anything that the world is interested in. If you're interested in bringing more depth and clarity into life and world events, then be sure to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you're notified and you can join the discussion. Remember, if you're wanting to deal with your twin flame situation once and for all, if you're tired of the confusion and you want to get clarity, then be sure to get your ticket to my online Twin Flames Revealed workshop on February 21st from noon to 5:30 p.m. We are going to be addressing absolutely everything in regards to the twin flame journey, and there will be no stone unturned. Okay, there's going to be a live Q&A with me at the end. So if you have any remaining questions, which I doubt you will, you can ask me directly. The point of this event is for there to be absolutely no more questions and confusion regarding the twin flame journey. There's just a lot of confusion, okay? People are not really understanding what divine connections really are. They're not understanding even the divine connection between narcissists and empaths, okay? They're not understanding what it means to be a part of that 144,000 and what that's really about, okay? Because it's not just about being special. It is, but it is about the people who are going to be willing to do what they really need to do, versus just chasing love, okay? Which most people are going to get caught up in chasing romance and fantasy. Okay, so this is a really deep workshop, okay? It's not a surface, basic level type of workshop. It's going to go much deeper than the information that you see. And that is out there. It is going to address all of the information that is already out there. But as with all of my work, for any of you who have attended any of my in-depth teachings, you know that I bring something that's not already out there. So I can't really, take what's out there and act as if this workshop is going to be just about what's already out there. Okay, because I bring a fresh perspective to things, and this workshop is going to be no different. Okay, so it's going to go pretty deep, so I recommend you be there. The tickets are selling out, and the event is this Sunday. You will get a recording for the event if you can't stay for the entire thing or anything like that. You will have access to listen to it again after the event is over. Okay, so on to this week's Worldly Wednesday, which is going to be about narcissism. Okay, everybody, oh my goodness, how much have we been hearing about narcissism? It's been everywhere. Everybody's talking about narcissism. Oh, this person's a narcissist, right? We've been hearing just a ton about narcissism. And so today we're really going to break that down. Okay, we're really going to get into what narcissism really is. Because there's a difference between narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder, which people are quick to say, oh, this person's a narcissist, which basically they are saying this person has narcissistic personality disorder, which is something that is very much different from narcissism. So what is narcissism? Narcissism is excessive interest in or admiration of oneself and one's physical appearance. Excessive interest in or admiration of oneself and one's physical appearance. This is very rampant in society, but this is not narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, it's just not. Now, when we talk about narcissism, there's a couple of things. We need to clear up the definition of narcissism, and we need to clear up the definition of selfish, okay? Because some people that are exhibiting traits of narcissism or selfishness are being called narcissists. Selfish is lacking consideration for others and concerned with one's own personal gain or pleasure. This too is very rampant in society, but this is not narcissistic personality disorder. Okay? The key terms here are excessive and lacking consideration for others. Okay? Excessive and lacking consideration for others. Every selfish person is not a narcissist. And every act of narcissism is not a personality disorder. Okay? Narcissism has an air of vanity to it. It's about looking a certain way to others no matter what the truth is. Okay? So what are some acts of narcissism? Because they're very rampant in society. It's excessive selfies. Okay? What is excessive selfies other than an excessive interest or admiration of oneself and one's physical appearance? Okay? That's narcissism. Is that a narcissist? Not necessarily. Posting on social media for admiration, looking for admiration for others, wanting to be admired by others. This is narcissism. Okay? And understand, we all have a certain degree of narcissism. Does that mean we're narcissists? It does not. Seeking admiration and admiring oneself excessively. Okay, once again, it's that key word, excessive. Okay, so when you see people who are, selfie every few minutes, their page is full of selfies, everything is a picture of them for you to admire them. They're admiring themselves and how they look. That is narcissism. Okay, plastic surgery is another form of narcissism. It's another form of seeking that admiration, being excessive in, admiring the way you look or wanting to admire the way you look. How much more excessive can you be than to go and have your face cut open? Okay, to go and have your body cut open in order to be able to admire yourself more deeply. Okay, that is an act of narcissism. Does that make a person a narcissist? No, it does not. And we're going to get into the difference between narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. Now, let's look at acts of selfishness, because people who are showing behaviors of narcissism or who are doing acts of selfishness are being called narcissists. So we're going to get into the differences. So what are acts of selfishness? Other people not coming to mind in your decisions. Okay, that's selfishness. Not necessarily a narcissist or a sign of a personality disorder. That is a sign of selfishness. And selfishness means that you don't consider, even though your decisions impact other people, you don't consider those people when you make your decisions. Now, does it mean that just because you consider people, you're always going to make the decision based on their needs and what is just completely about them? No, it doesn't. But you are going to consider the impact your decisions have on other people. When you don't do that, you're acting selfishly. Cheating in relationships is selfishness, okay? There's no other way to look at that. When you're cheating in a relationship, you're not considering other people, and that is the definition of selfishness. You're not considering, how your decisions are impacting in others, and you don't really care, because remember, the definition of selfishness is lacking consideration for others and concerned with one's own personal gain or pleasure. So it is selfish to cheat in a relationship. It is selfish to cheat with somebody else's partner in a relationship. No other way to look at it. You're more concerned with your own personal gain and your own pleasure than you are about anybody else's pain or the impact you're going to cause other people. That is an act of selfishness every single time. Children get hurt. All kinds of people get hurt. But selfish people don't care. Okay? It's about their pleasure. And this feels good to them and they want it. Doesn't necessarily mean they're a narcissist. Another act of selfishness, taking advantage in business deals. This is an act of selfishness. Okay, because you're thinking about your own personal gain, and you really could care less about, the situation being beneficial, where you're considering all parties involved. So taking advantage is an act of selfishness. Stealing is an act of selfishness, because you're not considering how your behavior is going to impact others. Neglecting your children is selfishness. People will be so selfishly absorbed with love and a relationship and wanting to be with somebody that they're neglecting their kids. They'll say, "Oh, I'm so loving," but you're not so loving that you think about the people who should matter most to you in your life, which is your children. You're more concerned with getting your own needs met and your own pleasure. That's selfishness. Okay, that's not love. That's not anything other than selfishness. Okay, so neglecting your children is an act of selfishness, because you're thinking about your own pleasure above those that you're actually obligated to think of. And you're not considering how all of your attention going to yourself and your needs, and not, meeting the needs of your children, is an act of selfishness. Okay, so now that we have some understanding about narcissism, behaviors of narcissism, acts of narcissism, and acts of selfishness, let's look at narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, because there's a difference, and the world is just throwing around this term, they're a narcissist, without understanding the difference. Now, narcissistic personality disorder, we're getting, when we call people narcissists, we're basically saying they have a personality disorder, and we have to understand what that is. Narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, is characterized by an exaggerated sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. Keyword: exaggerated sense of self-importance. Okay, so when we talk about narcissism, we're talking about acts of narcissism, which we all do. We all have narcissistic traits, and we all do acts of narcissism sometimes. Okay, we admire ourselves a little too much. We get into narcissistic behaviors. However, the difference for it to be a personality disorder is an exaggerated sense of self-importance, because that is where the narcissism is getting down into the personality structure of the person, which is the difference between narcissism and being a narcissist. A narcissist has narcissism down into their personality structure, right? It's becoming a part of their internal operating system, the way they operate within themselves, the way they see themselves, their personality structure. And that is the difference. That's when it becomes a personality disorder. So how does narcissism look when it's down in the personality structure, where it is kind of disordered? Well, it's going to look like you can do to others what they can't do to you. Okay? That is narcissism in the personality structure. That is that exaggerated sense of self-importance. Okay? So other people are not important enough that you don't do certain things to them, but you're so important that it's a problem if those things are done to you. That is narcissism in the personality structure. That is an exaggerated sense of self-importance. Okay? Why is it that it's so important that others not do to you the very things that you can do to them? So you can cheat. This will look like people who feel like they can cheat in relationships and it's justified. They have a reason for why they cheated. But if somebody cheats on them, there's no excuse. Okay? They can cheat, but they can't be cheated on. This is where you're the one initiating behaviors towards someone else. But then if they do it back to you, oh, it's a problem. That's narcissism in the personality structure. The rules don't apply to you. Okay, so the rules that you have set for other people are not the same rules you live by. That is narcissism in the personality structure. That is an exaggerated sense of self-importance. You are so important that others must abide by these rules, but you don't apply those rules to yourself because you're just above that. Okay? Another example of narcissism in the personality structure is going to be you are who you see yourself as, regardless of your behavior. Okay? That's narcissism in the personality structure, where it is getting into that disordered range. Okay? Where it's getting into some personality disorder. Okay? So you see yourself as how you want to see yourself, regardless of the things you do. Okay? So that means that you are so self-important that how you see yourself trumps your behavior and how others see you collectively. Okay? So you can lie all the time, but you are an honest person because you see yourself as an honest person, regardless of the fact that you lie all the time. This is narcissism in the personality structure. This is disorder. Okay? How can you lie all the time and you're not a liar? Just because in your mind you see yourself as an honest person. That is an exaggerated sense of self-importance. You are so important that you are just above the reality of what you do. Okay? You see yourself as a loving person, yet you do very unloving things to people in your life. Okay? But because you see yourself as a loving person, it just overrides the fact that you have a whole wake of people that you've hurt behind you that you don't even think of. So your behavior of being hurtful doesn't make you, a less loving person. Okay? That is an exaggerated sense of self-importance. Because who you really are is not just about who you see yourself as. It's also about who you show up as in the world predominantly. Okay? How you treat other people is about who you are. It's not just the way you see yourself. Another characteristic of narcissism getting down in the personality structure and becoming disordered is projection. Okay? So basically what you are, you project onto other people so that you can see yourself in that self-important, because your perception of yourself is just so important that it trumps everything else. So it would look like you don't consider others in your decision, but you'll say nobody ever thinks of you. Nobody ever thinks of you. But you never consider others in your decisions. So you actually never think of other people. But you'll project that outward and say nobody ever thinks of me. You abuse others, but if they call you to your attention, they're being abusive. Okay? That is getting into narcissism in the personality structure to the point that it's becoming disordered. Okay? If somebody is coming to you about what you're doing to them, or they're calling you to your attention and they're saying, hey, you're abusive, what you do is abusive, and then you say you're being abused because of that, that's narcissism in the personality structure. Okay? That's projection. Another thing is you can't be held accountable for your behavior because you're just too important. Okay? So when people want to hold you accountable and say, hey, you did this, you can't be bothered with that. You can't be bothered with being accountable for what you've done. There's always some way for you to avoid being accountable for your behavior. This is your exaggerated sense of self-importance being so big, right, that you are so important that you are above accountability. Okay, that's a disorder, because nobody is that important. Nobody is so great that they shouldn't be held, or they can't be held accountable for the things that they do. A big one is using tactics to avoid facing others' experience and perception of you that doesn't match your own exaggerated sense of who you are. Okay? So what that means is when you have to face how others experience you, your impact on them, their perception of you, and it doesn't match your exaggerated sense of who you are, then you're going to use some type of manipulative or avoidance tactic, some way to avoid that. Okay, that is narcissism getting down into the personality structure. That is above narcissistic type of behaviors or behaviors of narcissism. Okay, that's getting in the personality structure when you're always finagling to avoid facing others' experiences of you and their perceptions of you when it doesn't match this exaggerated sense of who you are. So when you say I'm a loving person and somebody confronts you about you cheating on them and how unloving they feel that was towards them, and that doesn't match your exaggerated sense of what a great person you are, and then you try to flip that around somehow to make it as though, you know, you are still who you believe you are, regardless of the type of impact you've had on other people. Okay, that's narcissism getting down into the personality structure. Okay, because although we all cause, you know, pain, or, you know, we fail people, we disappoint people in our lives at certain times. When you want to avoid facing other people's experience and their perception of you, how they experience you to some degree matters, especially if it's more than one person or it's people very close to you, like your children, your partner. Okay, because you can't go around just living for everybody, because you got to understand some people are going to be projecting onto you, and their experience of you is going to be about them. And what does that mean? That looks like sometimes if you are just excited about something, you're not trying to put anybody down, you're just excited about an amazing thing in your life, right? And you start talking about it and someone says, oh, you think you're better than me. That's a projection. Okay, because if you weren't coming from a place of I'm better than you and you were just excited, then their experience of you is about their low self-esteem. Okay, so that does happen. But what I'm talking about is a consistent using of tactics to avoid any of that feedback that comes back that goes against who you think you are. People who do not have narcissism getting down into their personality structure, they consider those things. They look them over, they weigh them over honestly. And they hold themselves accountable for the times when they've been thinking of themselves in a way that they haven't been behaving in alignment with. Okay, so every person who is displaying an act of narcissism or selfishness is not a narcissist. To be a narcissist, you have to have narcissism getting down into the personality structure. Okay, and I go more into narcissist and empath relationship dynamics in my upcoming Twin Flame workshop. If you're interested in the divine connection between narcissism and empathy, in a way that most are unaware of, if you really want to go deep into some of these dynamics, I recommend you attend that event this Sunday. The link will be in the description box below. Okay, but understand that all of this going around calling everybody a narcissist, and being so caught up in narcissism, I'm going to be honest, in a lot of ways, it is society's rejection of their own narcissism. Okay, because like I said, we all have some narcissism. We all have behaviors of narcissism. We all have behaviors of selfishness. It does not make a person have a personality disorder. There is a difference, and that difference is when the narcissism is getting down into the personality structure, and that the way the person is perceiving the world, the way that they are operating within themselves is filled in narcissism, okay, and in that exaggerated sense of themselves, okay, regardless of if they have any reason to believe they're that great. In their mind, they are, and that is all important and all encompassing. Okay, so that's that, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and you know, it gave you a little deeper perspective about narcissism. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you all next Wednesday for another Worldly Wednesday.